Hey again. Thanks for joining me at What's on Your Plate podcast for another episode that turns pain into purpose and elevates passions. My guest today has firsthand knowledge on the art of play and the way she has overcome physical challenges by doing something as simple as allowing for the messy and unpredictable flow that is found when using creativity to heal. Before we jump in, please take the time to follow or subscribe to the podcast. It's an important click that can make all the difference for independent platforms like this one. I am incredibly thankful for all my loyal listeners, and it's your interest in the conversations that keep them coming. With that said, there'll be a rebranding in the near future to improve upon what has been built thus far, and I'm looking forward to what's to come. So stay tuned and stay in the loop by making sure you are subscribed and following this podcast. Without further ado, please help me welcome my amazing guest, Allie. I'm excited to have you here today, Allie Hall. She is a contemporary artist and wellness advocate whose work is rooted in emotional connection, intuition, and a deep reverence for nature. She blends abstract realism with coastal landscapes to explore themes of transformation, reflection, and joy. Right off the bat, that just is so smile worthy. It's just so beautiful to even say. And of course, I've looked at your work and seen your absolute talent and creativity in what is visible, even virtually. I'm sure in person is just hard to describe, but beautiful for sure in what I am able to see, and just the way that it is described in your words from your bio. It all just flows so beautifully together.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here today, too. I'm so excited to connect with you as well.
Yeah, this is just going to be a really fun conversation today. It's not one I feel like has been in this space, at least from this angle. We're going to be hearing you talk about just how you became inspired to create like you do, and how it's been an important part of your journey and your healing. And I don't want to get too far ahead or speak for you, so I will just let you tell us how this all started for you and where it all began.
Yeah, that sounds great. So I have been creative as long as I can remember. I think the first art class I ever took was at 3 years old, and it was my mom
Mm.
that was the one who saw me color in the lines and was like, I think you should try getting out there and painting or getting out there and drawing. So that was how it initially started. But I actually pivoted later on in my teenage years and learned design and transition from painting and trying that to then more of the corporate side of things. So I paused on painting for a really long time. I think it had been over a decade actually until I had painted again. And I returned to painting during a season of physical health after multiple surgeries that I had endured. And to me, that became more of a lifeline to heal. And it was returning to a part of something that I didn't even know I needed at the time. And for me, what really started as a way to get there was encouragement actually from a close therapist of mine who was like, what if you just took 10 minutes each day to go and paint something? It could be anything, it could be drawing. And I wasn't sure initially. I am a creative person, and I was like, what's the point? Maybe it's a waste of time. I didn't feel yet inspired to go and do that, but I was up to take that creative challenge because I was like, what do you have to lose? This is something I used to really enjoy doing. And one thing I did was I decided to try a new medium, and a medium is just a different type of uh, it could be paint, it could be pencil, it could be crayon, it could be anything. But I tried something called alcohol inks, and alcohol inks are pure pigment mixed with isopropyl alcohol. And when you put them on a paper, the paper type is called Yupo paper. The pigment kind of explodes on the paper in a spontaneous freeform way, and then you add the alcohol in addition on top of it, and that evaporates. So you don't know how the color is going to turn out, how the composition is going to turn out. And I started doodling first and painting with this medium to just be spontaneous, to be creative in a way that wasn't being a perfectionist, but just playing with color and starting to embrace experimenting and having fun again versus having a particular set thing I needed to make because of my creative background. And just that exercise of getting back out there, having a little bit more fun, and trying something new really rebuilt into a deeper practice of self connection, community, and emotional release. And that eventually built one of my first art series that I called Affirmations. And each little piece that I made, I named after an affirmation. And I really loved that experience, and it just helped me rebuild a side that isn't so important. It's something that I really value, and it led to continue to really expand on that and now paint coastal landscape inspired work that's also abstract realism. So I feel really grateful to have had that moment in time, and I think it's a gift to have gone through different kinds of medical trauma and heal and take that time to connect with self, because I think oftentimes we're so busy and caught up in like whatever it might be, whether it's just the day to day, giving to other people, not really taking time to check in with yourself and see how you're doing. So I just feel so much gratitude having gone through that moment in time because it's really shifted my life in the last 5 years. So yeah, it's kind of just how I got back to painting and just understanding that creative flow again.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that. It brings to mind to me a question about how you receive something differently from the new modality that you worked with, in a different way than you would something you tried previously, or with journaling perhaps, or some other form of just kind of losing yourself in an art form or releasing something versus getting it out, whether it's journaling or a different way of doing that. But how was that different? How did you receive that differently than you would of something that you were already familiar with?
Yeah, I think for me it was because it was so unknown in terms of how to use the product and how it would interact with the paper
Mhm.
or applying it. I could be a bit more free and open to failure, whatever that might mean. And like in art, I believe there are no mistakes. I don't believe that there's a way that you can fail. I only think that you can add to it. I think that you can give yourself a moment to learn from things when you might see it as like, oh, I don't know if I like this, or it's not really like quote unquote art or artistic. It's more of
Mhm.
I'm going to give myself permission to experiment and to play. And I call that the whole art of play. So it was just being open to trying something new and building that openness continued to help ripple effect for me and expand my horizon on the value of just creating for creating's sake because it's a deeper connection with self than I think if you were to just create something, make it perfect, like whatever you might be wanting to draw or whatever. It's just you're putting yourself almost like too much confinement. So I learned from just trying a new medium like that that was a little bit more exploratory and loose that I could also be a bit more open and also spontaneous and really embrace the abstract side of creative making. And I love bringing that into my abstract realism landscapes now. It's like, it doesn't have to be 100% real, but it can help flow. And I feel a bit more connected in that creative flow when I'm making art too. So more experimentation, more fun, and less of the perfectionist side of it for me.
Yeah, all of that for sure. Of the less perfectionism, leaning more into the fun of it. And when you're describing all of that to me, I'm thinking back on the art classes of my youth and how none of that was a thing. You had an assignment, you had to create something that was within the guidelines, the constraints of the instructions, and somebody was judging you on your creativity and grading you on whether or not you followed the creative steps, instead of just making it your own. And I feel like there's probably a lot of people who would lean more into creating in whatever artistic modality would resonate with them if they were allowed to be more free form with it from early on.
Yes, I 100% agree. And that's another thing that I love to lean into after going through my journey. I actually started first too with teaching other people how to embrace creativity. And during COVID, I taught virtual workshops because I was craving community and I felt like other people were looking for other outlets and just thinking about mental health and connection. I started teaching abstract painting. So we would meet, we had like marbles, and we started rolling around marbles on artwork and made these little greeting cards, and it could just be playful. And I think there was like at first a hesitancy when teaching people how to paint with paint, and there was like, I don't know, I haven't painted in so many years. But then when you get into that flow and you have almost like no rules, just try and have fun, it then gave people like a breath. You were able to be playful, bring that energy, and then continue to dabble. And the cool thing from that is I had people after the class send me photos of more that they were making, or like they used rocks to add texture, and those were their marbles. Like it didn't have to be so prescript, like I think in previous classes or maybe past creative workshops they may have taken had to follow along with certain stuff. So I really embrace more of like the art therapy side and the way
Mhm.
the process of making and connecting with what you're doing and the tactileness of it versus it has to look a certain way, it has to feel a certain way, because then I think people then feel really uncomfortable or almost kind of shut down in a way because it's not, quote unquote, following the standard of whatever it might be that they have to do.
Definitely. Does that relate to your paintings creating a visual dialogue between the external world and the internal experience that you talk about?
Yeah, definitely. When I'm painting the landscape, abstract ocean, coastal scenes that I do, I paint them based off of places I've been. So they're all photo references of things and places I've been, but they're not 100% exact. So the color might be more vibrant on some, or maybe they're a little bit more abstract in how I create movement in the ocean. And for me, abstract realism is all about painting with your heart, not just your eyes. So I want you to feel as if you're there. And maybe it's like a memory that comes back to you. And I think that's the coolest thing when I meet other people and I've shown some of my artwork. People were like, oh, that place looks so familiar. And from a distance, it looked photorealistic. But then up close, I can see just this like layering and layering of paint, and it's not as detailed, but it creates this kind of like push-pull factor, and you can feel the depth in the colors that I've placed. And people are like, I really can feel something in this, and I don't even know how to explain it. So it's a fun play for me bringing that into my art, and that's my own unique expression, where when you're looking at the art and you're around original art in particular, what I've learned is it really mirrors back whatever you might be feeling inside. So it's a fun play, even in that sense, where the larger the piece that I paint, the more that I think that people can feel that energy from a piece versus just maybe like a print or a smaller piece. But yeah, I love to bring that same kind of fluidity or playfulness into the flow of the work too.
Yeah, the emotion that you feel when you are amongst original art, like you're talking about, or when you're creating it. What comes to mind for me when you're describing that is when somebody is immersing themselves in something like painting, um, losing yourself in a way that you have no idea what time of day it is, versus it feeling like something you're just having to like get through, or it's forced, or obligatory, even if it is within a class that's required or something, or even something that you're trying that maybe you're not connecting with as much. But when you're talking about being in flow with something, really losing yourself within it in a way that allows you to put the emotion from that you're put the emotion that is within yourself onto the canvas.
Yes. And when I don't feel like I'm in that emotional flow, then that's when I check in with myself. So there are creative blocks, and I think that's kind of within all of us. And at times, I don't want to go out and go paint. And so what's helpful is having an accountability buddy. So my husband is one where he's like, "Hey, have you painted? It's been a while." I'm like, "I don't know if I'm feeling it yet. Like I need to feel that creative spark." And sometimes it's just going into a space cleaning. If I'm in the energy of the environment, I clean that area, maybe that'll spark it. Or maybe it's just painting something completely different, not even related to the body of work that I usually do. So I try other practices to help rebuild that, or it's just sitting down in stillness. I really believe in sitting in stillness. It's something
Mhm.
that I struggle with and really try to bring into my life monthly, if not weekly. And that's just like meditating, journaling, like trying aromatherapy and smelling a candle, just something that grounds you being back in your body. Usually, when I'm not in my creative flow, it's because I'm in my head, I'm not in my body. And so I really believe in bringing wellness and creativity together because it's your way of processing the world around you, being more connected with yourself, and also being able to allow whatever emotions are coming up to be released, or at least not be held in denial in the background, in your brain, whatever it might be. So whenever I find those moments, that's a good self reality check to sit down and check in.
I agree with that so much. There is so much to be said about the magic that comes from sitting in stillness. And it doesn't even have to be physical still, right? I feel like a lot of people envision sitting in a yoga pose with candles lit and maybe some serene music, but it can also just be a walk in nature or sitting oceanside with your feet in the sand. But something that is allowing you to have a sense of calm and there's nothing distracting or energizing about your space.
Yeah.
And I just think it's such an underutilized tool that, as you mentioned, it is within all of us, and we all have access to it if we just choose to utilize it.
Yes. And I I think going back to just like time, even if it's 5 minutes and going
Mhm.
back to like 5 or 10 minutes in your daily life, weekly life, whenever you want to do it, it really can help change your framing of how you look at taking time for yourself and in stillness. It's harder to set the time, and we all do have at least 5 minutes. It could even be you're driving in the car and you do breath work and you just check in and you have a way to remind yourself on your phone. But I think it's just that intention being built as well will help hold you to your practice. And that's what I have found, even when initially it's harder to do that. It's like going to the gym. You may not want to go every day, but by going, you feel better. And that's how I think of stillness too. Like giving yourself that space and time to think will help you show up as a better person, will help you be able to be a bit more connected and have a bit more of that like breath to show up for others too.
Absolutely. And I would agree totally with once you go, whatever it is, the gym, the stillness, the thing that you know is good for you, but you don't feel like you can carve out time for, once you're there and you're in it, you're always just so grateful. There's never the feeling of, oh, I wish I wouldn't have made time for stillness today,
Yeah.
because you gain so much from it. I love something else that you said a little bit earlier about how there are times you don't feel like painting. There are times when you're just not in that inspiring energy. And I think that's important for listeners to hear because I feel like so often, especially if it's an art form or if it's writing, playing an instrument, I feel like there's a lot of people that feel like if you're going to be good at something or even use it in a way that brings joy or healing to your life, it should be something that you always want to do or that always feels like a priority to you. But that's not necessarily true. And I love that you said that because somebody as talented as you and who has gained so much healing and just so much transformation from what you do, there are still times when you take a step back and you have to find your flow and inspiration again. And I think that's normal and I think it's natural. Just like somebody might have writer's block or something, there's like highs and lows to everything. And it's what you do with the lows that create the highs.
Yes, definitely. And that's where maybe it's not painting, but maybe it's something else. Like it could be cooking and making a nice meal for myself and just being slow and take a step back. Creativity comes in all forms. So it's writing, it's just it could be any of that. It's writing, painting to I don't know, anything that you're making with your hands or anything that you're doing to connect with yourself, I think is a form of creativity. And you don't have to be an artist because we all are creatives and we have that skill set. It's just more how we embrace it every day and how we want to see it. And when you do that, then you again create a place for you to be able to sit still, to breathe, to be grounded, and that creates joy. Creativity is hand in hand with joy.
Definitely. I love what you talk about with being open to failure as well. Because again, people thinking that they have to be perfect, or that it has to make sense to somebody else as well. Talk
Yeah.
about that a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, growing up, I was always a high achiever, got straight A's, really, have been one to want to make sure that whatever I put out there is like the highest degree of what feels great or, matches whatever that standard might be. And I think being someone who's gone through art school, design side of it, all of that, like we would have professors write such crazy things and rip our work off the wall. Like you have just
Mhm.
a high standard that you take on and you kind of create this like hard shell because you need to be okay with thick feedback coming in that may feel really hard to hear. So you're almost trained in that way. And that's why I think allowing yourself to be playful and that openness of it and being okay of like, hey, if I put this out there in the world and no one reacts to it, that's okay because it wasn't for someone else. Like I did this to really just show up for myself, to process whatever I'm feeling. And by putting one thing out there, even if it just touched one person,
Mhm.
amazing. Like at the end of the day, it's not about status, it's not about that. And I think making for making's sake, making for yourself and helping other people embrace their creativity is my why. Like when I can help someone in that way, that's always been kind of my through line, my values of being a creative person. And so I love that aspect of art, but I do think being able to embrace failure is so important. And so there's like something I think about often, which is like if you say like, okay, what if I fail? Then like, well, what if something great happens? What if you put yourself out there? And I keep indexing more on the what if you just do it anyway side because that has allowed me to be bolder and show up and shine brighter than staying in a place of fear. And usually fear is what keeps you in a place of failure and or a place of not moving forward. And having just like I don't know, it's like motion over progress. And so if you stay in a place where you're kind of circling and only in fear, then you just would never know. And it could have taken you a lot further if you just said yes and tried something new. So that's kind of been my journey of just understanding fear and failure and the art of saying yes and embracing possibility versus staying small and closing myself out to wanting to try something new.
Yeah, that makes so much sense, all of that you just shared. And I feel like that fear is rooted more in not what we think about ourselves, but what we are afraid other people will think of us. And
Yeah,
if we can detach any kind of value from that and remind ourselves that first and foremost, what I'm doing from a creative standpoint is first and foremost for me and for my own journey and my own healing and reflection. And if it resonates with somebody else, that's amazing. But at
yeah,
the end of the day, it's my creative outlet and what feels good for me for my journey.
definitely. And the more that like mindset helps ground you, I think the more you can continue to elevate and go into places that you didn't even know. And like that's all I've learned in my creative journey. And it's been amazing to have community as part of that too. Like finding your community, building your community who embrace what you're putting out there and help support you and uplift you also helps amplify that and build your confidence. So that if you're in a place of fear, you also have people who are rooting for you too.
So important. Community is also, I feel like, an undervalued tool. It's easy to kind of recoil into ourselves when we're feeling afraid, or just maybe that's the personality of somebody who prefers kind of a introverted space or solitude. But I mean, I can certainly relate to that.
Same.
But it, yeah, but at the same time, we're meant to live in community of some sort, even if it's not intensely, constantly. Tell me about where you find community and how you've created it.
For me, it's been actually randomly through Instagram, starting with people who have found some of my work and then creating different workshops around that has been a way where I've created like a virtual way to teach people together or just people that are connected in other women's entrepreneurship groups has been a lot of my community this year. So I've actually been partnering really closely with a community called Clean Living. Clean Living is all about finding ways to embrace clean, non-toxic products in your life and embrace wellness. And I love that because my art connects a ton with the women who are part of that. And then they're making products or have a platform to talk about just ways to keep ensuring that you're living a life that's healthy, that's, using products on your skin and everything that's going to not cause other issues. So
Mhm.
I find inspiration through them because they're doing something so different. And it's also a form of creativity. And it's been a great way to just continue to do events with them or partner and find ways to keep expanding or collaborate or create wellness retreats or whatever it might be. And that's been a really cool way to plug in this year and to really build and embrace my brand as an artist. And I never would have expected something like that, but it was just a DM message that I received about my art because they were looking for an artist to potentially curate a space that they had that they were doing a wellness event for. And they just loved how my art created that sense of calm. So it's just, you
Mm.
never know how you can build community in that way. And sometimes it's just, if I hadn't put myself out there, I would have never known or had such an amazing opportunity. My only goal this year was to have like one of my art shows happen in San Francisco, and like that was it. And so I think the more you have that community and the more you reach out or find ways to get plugged in with other women or just men, people doing great things, that can only help amplify and accelerate whatever the goals you might be manifesting are in your brain too.
Sure. And what a testament to the unexpected places that you find connection and community, opportunity that you didn't know existed, and even people being creative in different ways than you are, because
Definitely.
there are so many ways of doing that. And that's amazing. I love that that is something that came to you this year, and sounds like something really cool and unexpected. And sometimes that's the best things in life.
Yes, definitely. And it's just been so fun to see their journeys too. Like there's many people in there who are cancer survivors who do sound baths and they like lead this whole their process of like helping women heal and understand that it's okay. Like I love that so much and just having that space to feel inspired is something that I can't I wish I could bottle it up because I value it. Every time I'm around them, I'm like, wow, I feel alive. I feel so good and that helps refresh my creative energy too.
Definitely. That's the other really important part about community is the inspiration that comes from it. So not only are you supported and amongst like-minded people, but you kind of feed off each other and become inspired for what's next for you, and you do the same for them. So again, yeah, community, even for introverted type of personalities, is really important. So I love that that's something that is a big part of what you do in your life and that you're on the platforms just sharing what you do.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's yeah, again, just really underestimated, underutilized, important part of what anybody does, honestly. I would love to hear you talk more about the art of play. Play is
Okay.
something that I think can feel hard for adults. I think that we lose the ability to play, and then we don't know how to get back to it.
Yes, I think we stop making time for it and it goes back to time. And it also goes back to the perfectionist side of things, or maybe it's just even the intention of where we spend our time. So, for example, a lot of the time at the end of a work day or whatever it might be, you're so exhausted, all you want to do is watch Netflix, and that's totally fine, but it's like almost a numbing in a way. Like
Yeah.
we're so exhausted, that's just where we're spending time. But it could be maybe one day a week or month, whatever kind of creative practice challenge you want to put out there is you find something new to try that you've been wanting to do that you haven't done yet. And that could be trying a new exercise class, that could be trying a new recipe, that could be just going out on a walk in a place that you've been wanting to go. But like, start doing something that you've been wanting to do and haven't spent the time or intention to set for yourself, because that will help you begin embracing the art of play. When you put yourself in a new environment or a new situation or trying something new, it builds your brain's, like, I don't know, dopamine hit. They're like the neural pathways or whatever, the scientists call it, that like build that like happiness and that brings joy. So the more you create a newness in your life, the more that is a way to help build the art of play. And the art of play can be anything from trying something new to getting messy and, I don't know, just doing something that scares you a little bit, or you've been wanting to do it and you're now able to, try something and not being in your head about it. So I don't know, that's where I go back to the inks that I was playing with. It was messy, it was unpredictable, it was freeing. I then like was able to let go. And I think if you can find something that helps you get into a creative flow like that more often, or by trying something new, it'll give you space to then be okay with failure, be okay with getting out there. It might build community, you might meet a new friend. Like just one step to try something will help you in so many ways that you maybe wouldn't have had the opportunity to do. So, playfulness is a form of joy, and playfulness is hard to do because I think, again, we've lost that ability to really be a kid at heart. And when you watch kids paint, like I recently taught my 2.5-year-old niece how to watercolor. There wasn't this like, how do you use a paintbrush and what color? She just took the brush and started going crazy. And so
Yeah.
maybe it's like putting yourself in a timer and you're like, give yourself 10 minutes and you just doodle, whatever it might be. But that spaciousness with trying something new will only help you be able to get back to that childlike state of being playful. And that playfulness is, again, joy.
I think this part of the conversation is so important for where the youth of the world is right now. And not to get off track, but when we think about the use of technology, the very heavy use of screens, and whether it's tablets or smartphones or computers or gaming systems, that forgetting how to play, I think, is happening at an alarming rate
Yeah.
with these younger generations. And to just do exactly what you did, to put a paintbrush in a 2-year-old's hand, to continue to do so as they become 6 and then 8 and 10 and 13, just on and on, just continuously putting the opportunity in front of them to remove themselves from what is dampening their ability to be creative, because it's not happening on screens. That's numbing, if anything else. So I love that you're doing that with your niece. I hope you consider, maybe you have already, doing that on a broader spectrum of youth classes, because I just think creativity is really something that is fleeting in the youth of the world right now. That, I won't go on and on about it, but it's just alarming that most kids will pick up their phone and not a
Yes.
paintbrush or not a journal or not a book or the instrument, the music, anything. It's concerning, I feel like.
It is concerning. And it's one where I think it helps when you have that same community or family. It could even be parents that show how they're also embracing creativity, which will potentially inspire that screen time to be on pause. Like it could be as simple as like, hey, I'm a mom, I'm gonna set 10 minutes before dinner where we can doodle or talk about our day and we can like draw out something, and it could be a game that you make with it. But it's just how can you create more tactileness without devices to connect with each other every day, I think is so important. Like my husband and I do date nights on Tuesdays, and sometimes we'll go out, for example, or sometimes we stay in and we have these like little date kits that we've tried, and it could be like, let's make a DIY bath bomb. But it's like there's so much you can bring into your day, and we made the rule like no screens, like we're 100% focused. And it's harder to do that. It's harder to set that intention, but at the end of the day, you feel so much more connected, you feel happier. And so I think finding ways to reduce screen time is always good. It doesn't have to be all day, but it could be at least 10 to 30 minutes, and you can feel a lot lighter. And you may not even use it after that because you realize the value of using your hands to create something or connect with other people in a deeper way brings a way more dopamine hit than just looking at your screen and continuing to scroll endlessly, too. I think you can always get inspired on social media, and maybe there's something like, okay, if you're scrolling on a certain topic, maybe it's about something that you've been wanting to try. So go try that. Like if
Yeah.
it's a recipe that you've saved or it's makeup, like whatever the youth might be into, then go try it because you're just consuming someone's content. Like there's no takeaway for you versus being able to try it yourself too.
Yeah, definitely. And for sure, there is a place for screens and even social media and, of course, the internet. But it's a tool, right? It's a tool to use to live your own life. Don't sit just watching somebody else live theirs. I think
Yeah.
that's the line for me is, advocating for that for my own child. When we have our own conversations about that, it is let's use this to think about how we can experience this in the real world as well and not just watch somebody else do it. So, um, anyways, yeah, I mean, I just love that your real, tangible way of creating art is something that is tool in hands, canvas in front of you, so to speak, really and truly just creating a physical thing that is healing and reflective and inspiring, gorgeous.
Thank you.
Yes, it's all stunning, and for our listeners, for sure, the links to see Allie's work will absolutely be in the show notes. So definitely go exploring all of her work and on the platforms and on her website. And you're inspired by the California coast primarily, is that right?
I am. Yeah, I grew up in Florida and also California and Texas as well. Three different states, but at least with Florida, most of my childhood was around the beach. So anywhere there's a body of water, I've always felt a sense of calm. And the water is healing. It's just something where no matter what, even if you're just floating in a body of water, I feel like I could be regrounded again and out of my head and more into my body. So for some, it might not be water. It might actually be like the desert and the heat. So
Mhm.
finding that space wherever that is in nature for you, for others, it might be like coastal fog or the mountains or the forest, whatever that is. I think just finding ways to bring yourself back to that is so healing. And I don't know, I love the sound of the ocean. I love the smell of it. I love just the sand. I love feeling that in my toes, whatever that is always a place of like childhood memory or just memory of happy things and moments in time that I wish I could bottle up again and like be with at all times too.
Well, I think you're doing a good job of kind of doing that just with your work, that bottling up of that joy and those nostalgic type feelings that bring you comfort, and healing during your journey of just recovering from surgery. What do you think that you would have done, or where do you think you would be if it wasn't for your art during the time of
Yeah,
healing?
I think I would honestly have been lost. Like, I think that there's like a level of depression when you go through healing, especially when there's chronic pain. It's so hard to feel like yourself. At least for me, it was a lot to just process. And when you can't physically move or do things like exercise, which I really also had as an outlet at the time, or even be able to do that anymore. I used to be a runner and no longer can run. Like you just lose a part of yourself that like you kind of go through a grieving period. So I think if I hadn't had art as a way to express it, like luckily I had good community, I had my husband, but it's still hard because you don't want to have that energy just on your partner or family or whatever that heaviness is. So I think if it wasn't that, then it could have been potentially writing. But I think art has always been that, like space for me to heal in that way. So I'm not sure. It could have been cooking as well or trying something new in that way. But that's where I just kind of go back to like a form of creative thinking would be one, community the other, and then being able to just check in with myself too with stillness. Like I think the biggest thing outside of art was learning the art of stillness. And because you couldn't move a lot of the time going through surgeries, you are stuck in that stillness. So you're either like in your head or you're in your body. So that's also when I really learned about mindfulness meditation, acceptance and commitment therapy, like just things that are helpful tools when you're embracing hard things or feeling a ton of pain or feeling like you just don't really know where that journey is going for you. And it almost feels like it's a lifetime versus like a moment in time. So
Mm.
those are things that help give me strength to continue to show up for myself and to be okay and also help other people later in life who've gone through hard things too. Because I think maybe if you've never gone through something traumatic medically, you like would never know, but then it's helpful to know people who've experienced that too, because it's life changing in its own way, and it just completely shifted my whole mindset of how I show up in the world and the things that I value and how I want to take care of myself moving forward too.
Definitely. And I think what I always receive from conversations where people have been overcoming something hard or healing from something intense is there's always been this forced stillness or this forced solitude or quietness that they've had to endure. um, from that, they have developed something amazing for the most part, whether it is art, whether it is some type of coaching or other way of pouring out into the world. But there's always been something amazing that came from that stillness, even though it was not something that they intended to have to do or be amongst. It was something that was forced on them in one way or another, be it illness or some other just form of having to resign themselves to that. But it's always a reminder to me that if we just, again, like we said earlier in the conversation, can intentionally set that time aside, even for those of us that maybe don't know what it would be for us to get us through something hard. Maybe you don't feel like an artist or a writer or a cook or a musician. And maybe you don't know what your healing modality would be in that way if you had to embrace something. But if we could just sit with ourselves, even those 5 minutes a day, like you said, and just hear ourselves, ground ourselves, I think we could all find our way to something really prominent in our lives.
I would agree. And I love using journal prompts for those moments too, especially when you don't know what's coming up for you. So like I think two or three journal prompts I usually will write down when I am journaling is like, what do I need right now in this moment? What's coming up for me and why? And what do I want to let go of? Or how can I really take today and what intention do I want to set for the day? And even just starting with those three can help you figure out more of a pattern of what you're craving. Like maybe you want to be outside in nature more. Cool. Like, but we don't know these things until we sit down and check in with ourselves. And that's why I go back to like, okay, if we're spending time watching TV or Netflix or whatever we might be doom scrolling, you could spend 5 minutes even before that and help yourself start to gain that clarity so you don't feel lost in what you want to be doing and how you want to show up for yourself every day.
Most definitely. I love that so much. Allie, talk to me a little bit about what you see yourself doing moving forward. What do you envision for yourself?
I love that. I hope to continue to spread my creativity with other people, both through workshops and helping inspire people to embrace that side or connect with art and find ways to heal, whatever that might be for them. So I really love the whole art therapy side of it. I haven't gone 100% into that, but I have tried smaller workshops and classes, so I'd love to continue to teach more of those. And then also just within the personal side of expanding the body of work that I'm doing, I have upcoming shows happening. So building out my series for that, and then feel like far out in the future, I'd love to own my own gallery and help other artists too, and keep expanding contemporary art into the world of the Bay Area or somewhere across California, and just like help women artists in general. I think there's like so much underrepresentation still with women
Mm,
artists. So I think that's another thing that's really important to me later in my creative journey there.
I love that as well. I want to go back to something that you mentioned earlier about you said that you had named some of your pieces after affirmations.
Yes, yes, I have. I actually gave my first one that I made to my grandma. She has it up, and it's one that's like, I accept what I cannot change, is the first piece I ever made. And
Mm.
it was all about just the current situation of healing and what I was going through. And I loved making that series because I made cards out of them actually. And so I gave cards to different people, and they're blank inside, but the name of the piece is like on the back of every single one. And every person just had their own interpretation of how it made them feel. And it was like the color usage was something they really loved, or the messaging behind the piece they really loved. And they would frame even just the card and put it in their office space. So it's just really amazing. I love tying affirmations to art or creating a body of work that is inspirational. I think like how you title work and the story behind your work is just as important of like whatever the composition is. So that one was, I think it was my first and my like one of my favorites that I ever made. And I also used makeup in that. So I paint with both alcohol inks and I added makeup for fun. So I had like gold mica pigment and like other layers and depth. And it became this like three-dimensional cosmic feeling like a cool composition, and it reminded me of the ocean too. It was like all ocean blue colors but then that gold, so it had that same brightness. It's been really cool to see that abstract side of it with my favorite colors of blue tones kind of go back into my coastal landscape abstract art too.
What you do is just so unique and interesting. I feel like there's work out in the world that and I'm sure it depends on the perception of the person looking at it, or maybe it's has to do too with really learning about what is behind the painting or the work of art that helps you appreciate it more. But I'm for sure getting that from everything you're sharing about your work and why you do what you do and what it has meant to you and how you have shared it with other people that you love. It just sits differently.
Thank you. I love that. Yeah, I hope to always inspire in that way. And I don't know. I think all artists have their own journey of how they are making what they're making and their why. And I think for me, it's always been at the center of healing and connecting with self, whether that's myself or others who need to connect with themselves and find that moment of stillness. And I think when you have a piece of original art in your home, it changes not only the environment, but can create that stillness. Like when you're looking even for a second at something beautiful in your home, it can remind you of calm. It can bring into that place of like, I'm going to just breathe, take a moment and sit in this beautiful space and think of the ocean. So, like, that's the other reason why I like to make pieces that remind me of a place that's healing, that remind me of a place that grounds myself, because I hope to do the same for other people too.
Definitely. And especially what you said about the original art, because it that emotion is like practically absorbed into that canvas from when you created it. It's different than a print.
Yes, yeah. Prints are beautiful too in their own way. And I think I've met really awesome artists that even will have like gold foiling on top of their prints and make it really unique and special.
Hmm.
Or they will epoxy it and make it into like a large, I don't know, wood print in a way that just feels like original, and you can't even tell because the color vibrancy is almost one to one with the original. So there's all forms of expression, but I think what really ties it all together is the artistic tactileness. Like you can feel that piece being made. And when I think of other things that have been made at like Home Goods or Target, wherever you might find prints, those are also beautiful and sometimes they're inspiring too. But I think you do miss that like uniqueness if it's just like one of a kind, or you got to meet the artist, or you have a story behind it. And whenever I'm at someone's house, like I have a friend who collects art from other artists, and she's like, oh yeah, this one I got at this place because it reminded me of this thing. It's like it's cool to be able to have a talking point too, but it's also great to have something that connects with you and makes you feel good in your space. And I believe in that. Like whatever you put around you should hopefully also make you feel really good too.
Definitely. It's not just about filling the space. Sometimes you need to clear a lot of the space to bring in something that's really original and unique and actually speaks to you.
Definitely. Yeah, it makes you feel good and at peace.
Definitely. Yeah, I love that. At peace. That's the word for me. Things that make me feel at peace and less cluttered and loud and all of that.
Love it.
Ellie, if we were going to leave our listeners thinking about something today as we close our conversation, which I can't even believe how fast this has gone today.
I
I
know.
always, I always just feel like these episodes, they should be a series because there's so many things to cover and to say. But if we were going to leave our listeners with some thoughts today, what would you want them to be?
Say like you don't have to be an artist to be creative. It's more about being willing and open to play and giving your space and time to do that. And that stillness is really at the root of that. And when you can give yourself that stillness, that leads to joy. So find whatever it is that you've been wanting to do and make time for it. And if you do, I want to hear from you because I want to see like how did it help you? How did it change your mindset? And if you do something creative, send it my way because I always love to see other people making cool things too.
That's so cool. I love that. And for our listeners, again, I've mentioned it earlier, but the ways to stay connected to Allie will be in the show notes. So take her up on that sharing of your creativity, and you never know what might come of just new connections and leaning into that stillness so you can be inspired to do something amazing.
Amazing. I love it. Thank you, Sarah. And thanks for your time today and letting me be able to share my story with all the listeners here too.
This has been a gorgeous conversation. I've loved it. So thank you for just the way you pour out and the unique way that you're showing up in the world. I feel like there's not enough conversation about how art can heal us, whether it's to help us move along through something physically, for sure, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. I think that there needs to be more conversations about the power of art and creativity in doing that.
Me too. And I love that. I think it's so important. And it's one where if anyone ever has questions on it, I'm always happy to help.
Thank you, Allie. This has been amazing.
Thank you.
One of the things I find challenging in life is what it means to play as an adult. If we are not self described or formal artists, many of us fall away from the fun we had as kids and forget what that even means. I love the way Allie made it feel within reach again in this conversation. It's not even that we don't have time, we just need to choose to take the time. Maybe it's not painting for you. Maybe it's something else like sculpting or sketching, journaling, making music, or even just taking a walk. Whatever gets you to the place where you sort of lose yourself. Not in the numbing way, not like scrolling or watching TV, but in self-reflective ways that reminds you of the joy that lives inside. If you love this conversation as much as I did, connect with Allie and follow her work. Check the show notes for ways to reach out, get involved, or be inspired to tap into your own creativity. Thanks again for being here and listening in. I'll be back with more conversations again real soon.